You have been lied to. From the moment you were born, society has been conditioning you to believe that you are fragile. They tell you that every moment of sadness, every spark of anger, and every minor setback is a deep psychological trauma that requires endless talking, analysing, and perhaps even a prescription. But what if the exact opposite is true? What if the constant dissection of your feelings is precisely what is keeping you weak? Today, we are going to expose a truth that the modern therapeutic industry does not want you to hear. There is a level of mental fortitude, an absolute psychological dominance, that makes modern emotional coddling completely irrelevant. This is not about suppressing who you are. This is about discovering a hidden power known only to a fraction of men. You are among the few who are even capable of understanding this frequency. Stay with me. I am going to show you why you are significantly stronger than you think and how you can lock down your mind forever. Before we begin, tell me in the comments right now, what is the one emotion that has cost you the most in your life? Look around you. The modern man is facing a crisis of the mind, but it is not the crisis the media talks about. The real problem is not that men are holding too much in. The problem is that men are being trained to let everything out without a single filter. You are told to be vulnerable at all costs, to wear your heart on your sleeve, and to view yourself as a permanent victim of your circumstances. This oversensitivity is destroying your natural edge. It breeds overanalyzing, constant anxiety, and a debilitating fear of failure. When you treat every emotional fluctuation as a catastrophe, you surrender your power to the external world. You become a leaf blown around by the wind. We are not going to quote ancient men in togas today. We are dealing with the raw, aggressive reality of the modern world. Your boss, your relationships, the economy, the relentless noise of the internet, they are all competing to break your focus. To survive and dominate in this environment, you do not need a safe space. You need a mind built of steel. You need a modern, ruthless application of emotional control. The myth of the broken mind. Society wants you to believe that your mind is a fragile glass sculpture. They build entire industries around your insecurities, convincing you that every minor friction is a deep-seated wound. This is a highly lucrative lie. The truth is, constantly examining your wounds prevents them from healing. Imagine a man who continuously picks at a cut to see if it is still bleeding. That is exactly what modern therapy culture often encourages. You do not need to endlessly dissect every feeling that crosses your mind. You simply need to acknowledge it and move forward. What separates a truly strong man from the rest of the pack is his refusal to view his own mind as a permanent crime scene. He sees it as a brutal training ground. He knows that psychological discomfort is not a disease. It is a biological signal. And once that signal is received and understood, the alarm does not need to keep ringing. You are not broken. You are simply out of practice when it comes to steering your own consciousness. The economy of reaction. Your attention is the most valuable currency on the planet. Everyone wants a piece of it. The media, your colleagues, the random stranger on the internet, they all want you to react. Because the moment you react, you surrender your power to them. Think of your emotional energy like pure water in a barren desert. Why are you pouring it onto dead sand? A weak man reacts to everything. He lets a passing comment ruin his entire week. An elite man operates on an entirely different frequency. He observes the chaos. He assesses the threat. But he rarely reacts. He responds. There is a massive, life-altering difference between the two. A reaction is an uncontrolled reflex. A response is a calculated strategic choice. This is what distinguishes a strong man. He holds his energy close to his chest. He decides what is actually worthy of his focus. And he realizes that almost nothing in the external world deserves his internal peace. The illusion of safe spaces. We live in a strange era that worships the idea of being safe from offensive words, difficult concepts, and the challenging thoughts. But safety is a complete illusion. The real world is chaotic, unpredictable, and entirely indifferent to your personal feelings. Trying to make the world softer is a losing game. It is like trying to carpet the entire earth just so you do not hurt your bare feet. The modern Stoic does not try to carpet the earth. He simply wears incredibly strong shoes. You build resilience not by avoiding what is hard, but by exposing yourself to it purposefully. When a man demands a safe space, he is unconsciously admitting that his mind is too weak to handle reality. The elite man carries his safe space inside his own head. His internal fortress is completely impenetrable. No matter what madness reigns in the outside world, his inner citadel remains untouched, quiet, and absolutely secure. The trap of endless validation. Look closely at the behavior of the masses. Men are constantly searching for a pat on the back. They want praise for simply doing their jobs. They want a gold star for acting like responsible adults. This desperate craving for external validation is a heavy iron chain around your neck. As long as you need someone else to tell you that you are doing well, you are their psychological slave. The moment they withdraw their praise, your entire identity will collapse. True emotional control means becoming your own ultimate judge. You set the standard. You evaluate your own performance with brutal honesty. If you know you did the right thing, the applause of the crowd means absolutely nothing, and their boos mean even less. What separates a strong man from the crowd is his absolute, uncompromising independence from public opinion. He does not seek followers. He seeks absolute mastery over himself. Rewriting the definition of trauma. We have diluted the word trauma until it means almost nothing at all. A bad day at work is not trauma. A romantic rejection is not trauma. A difficult conversation is not trauma. These are simply the basic, everyday frictions of human existence. When you aggressively label every minor inconvenience as a psychological wound, you strip yourself of your own agency. You transform yourself into a permanent patient in a hospital of your own making. Stop pathologizing your life. Hardship is supposed to hurt. Pain is the mechanism through which weakness literally leaves the body. When you lift heavy weights, your muscle fibers tear. They ache for days, but you do not go to a doctor to complain about the soreness. You understand it is the necessary price of physical strength. The exact same principle applies to your mind. Stop treating mental friction as a tragedy. Treat it as resistance training for your soul. The silence of true power. Notice how the weakest men are always the loudest in the room. They are constantly explaining themselves. They are always defending their actions, even when absolutely no one asked them to. They mistake making noise for having a presence. But true power is incredibly, terrifyingly quiet. When you know exactly who you are and what you are capable of, you do not need to broadcast it to the world. When you possess absolute emotional control, your silence becomes your most intimidating weapon. Imagine a situation where someone is actively trying to provoke you. They insult you. They desperately expect an angry reaction. Instead, you look at them in dead, unbroken silence. You hold their gaze without uttering a single syllable. That silence is deafening. It instantly shifts the entire power dynamic. What distinguishes the elite man is his strict economy of words. He speaks only when his words are significantly more valuable than his silence. Embracing the unfairness of life. One of the greatest sources of human misery is the naive expectation that life is supposed to be fair. Men cry out into the void, asking, why me? Why did I lose my business? Why did she leave? Why did I get sick? The modern Stoic answers that useless question with a much better one. Why not you? You are not magically exempt from the tragedy and chaos of the human condition. The belief in universal fairness is a child's concept. The universe simply does not care about your personal sense of justice. Once you fully accept this cold, hard truth, you are instantly liberated from suffering. You stop wasting your precious time waiting for the scales to balance. You start dealing aggressively with the reality right in front of you. A weak man protests the storm, screaming at the clouds. A strong man calmly builds a stronger boat. He takes full responsibility for his survival, regardless of who is to blame for the bad weather. The danger of the venting myth. You have been repeatedly told that you need to let your anger out. You are told that bottling it up is physically and mentally dangerous. Modern psychology absolutely loves the concept of venting, but deep neurological studies and common sense show the exact opposite. Venting your anger does not extinguish the flame. It throws a bucket of gasoline on the fire. When you punch a wall, scream into a pillow, or rant on the internet, you are literally training your brain to associate frustration with physical aggression. You are practicing being an angry person. The elite approach is never suppression, but transmutation. You feel the intense heat of the anger, but you absolutely refuse to let it control your limbs or your tongue. You channel that dark, aggressive energy into something highly productive. A brutal workout, a deep work session. What separates a strong man is that his anger builds empires instead of destroying his relationships. Detachment as a superpower. People fundamentally confuse detachment with apathy. Apathy is when you are numb and do not care about anything at all. Detachment is when you care deeply, you work intensely, but you refuse to let the final outcome destroy you. You do the hard work, you put in the maximum possible effort, but once the arrow leaves the bow, you accept that the wind might blow it completely off course. You cannot control the wind. You can only control the steadiness of your aim. This is the absolute essence of emotional stability. If you tie your self-worth to the exact outcome of every single endeavour, you will live your entire life on a nauseating emotional roller coaster. Detachment allows you to remain ice cold under extreme pressure. You can lose $1 million and still sleep well at night because your identity is not tied to the money. Your identity is tied to your proven ability to rebuild from nothing. The death of motivation. Motivation is a complete scam. It is an unpredictable, fleeting emotion that comes and goes exactly like the weather. If you wait until you actually feel motivated to build your business, hit the gym, or improve your life, you will constantly lose to the man who acts regardless of his feelings. Elite men do not rely on how they feel. They rely entirely on discipline. Discipline is doing what you hate to do, but doing it like you love it. It is the solid steel bridge between a thought and its execution. Your feelings are completely irrelevant to the task at hand. You wake up, you feel tired, you feel sad, you feel wildly unmotivated. Excellent. You acknowledge those feelings, you put them in a mental box, and you get to work anyway. What separates the 1% of men from the average masses is their absolute ability to separate their physical actions from their current emotional state. The poison of nostalgia. So many men are hopelessly trapped in the past. They mourn the glory days of their youth. They regret the mistakes they made 10 years ago. They constantly live looking in the rearview mirror. But driving a car while only looking backward guarantees a fatal crash. The past is nothing but a graveyard. You can visit it occasionally to learn a lesson, but you cannot live there. The modern Stoic is fiercely, violently grounded in the present moment. He knows that his current actions are the only things that actually exist in reality. Guilt and regret are completely useless emotions if they do not lead to immediate, tangible behavioural change. Forgive yourself for being an idiot in the past. You simply did not know any better at the time, but you know better now. Draw a heavy line in the sand. The man you were yesterday is dead. The man you are today dictates everything about the future. Forging the internal compass. Society graciously provides you with a map. Go to school, get a safe job, buy a house, retire quietly, and die. But that specific map inevitably leads to a destination of quiet desperation. Elite men do not use society's map. They painstakingly build their own internal compass. This requires deep, uncompromising, and often painful self-knowledge. You must know exactly what you truly value, not what television or social media told you to value. When you possess a solid internal compass, you completely lose the anxiety of missing out. You do not care if someone else is getting rich fast in a crypto scheme. You do not care if your neighbour is buying a bigger, flashier car. You are locked onto your own unique path. What separates a strong man from the mindless flock is his absolute refusal to compare, his chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20, he is completely immune to external distraction. Embracing radical responsibility. The absolute most toxic concept in the modern world is the concept of the victim. If you are a victim, you are inherently innocent. But if you are innocent, you are inherently powerless. The person or entity that is to blame holds all the power over your life. If your terrible life is your parents' fault, the government's fault, or the economy's fault, then you have absolutely no ability to change it. Radical responsibility means owning everything. Even if an event is completely not your fault, it is 100% your responsibility to fix it. Someone hits your parked car. It is not your fault, but it is your responsibility to deal with the insurance and get it fixed. Claiming responsibility is the act of claiming power. It shifts your brain away from useless complaining and forces it into aggressive problem solving. Elite men never say, "Look what they did to me." They smile and say, "Look what I am going to do about it." The currency of time. Most men guard their money fiercely but give their time away to absolutely anyone who asks for it. They will gladly spend 3 hours arguing with a random stranger online, but they will not spend $30 on a book that could alter the trajectory of their life. Time is the only resource in the universe that you cannot earn back. Every single minute you spend feeling sorry for yourself, consuming mindless entertainment, or engaging in petty drama is a minute stolen directly from your future legacy. The modern Stoic views his time as profoundly sacred. He is utterly ruthless with his personal boundaries. If an activity or a person does not make him stronger, wealthier, or wiser, he eliminates them without hesitation. What separates a truly powerful man from a weak one is his hyper-awareness of his own mortality. He knows the clock is always ticking. He simply has no time for meaningless emotional turbulence. The illusion of perfection. Perfectionism is not a virtue. It is just procrastination wearing a very nice suit. It is a cowardly defense mechanism. If you never finish a project because you claim it is not perfect yet, you never have to face the brutal judgment of the market. You never have to risk the sting of failure. Elite men value rapid iteration over impossible perfection. They launch, they fail, they adjust their strategy, they launch again. They do not sit in their rooms paralyzed by the crippling fear of making a mistake. Emotionally weak men are absolutely terrified of looking foolish in front of others. Strong men are more than willing to look like fools in the beginning in order to look like undeniable masters in the end. You must violently kill the desire to be flawless. It is a pursuit for the weak. Embrace the chaos and messiness of taking real, imperfect action in the real world. The mastery of solitude. If you cannot sit quietly in a room alone with your own thoughts, you are a profound danger to yourself. Men today are completely terrified of silence. They constantly have music playing, a podcast running in the background, or a glowing screen inches from their faces. They are endlessly running from the dark demons inside their own minds, but you cannot outrun them forever. Eventually, you have to turn around, plant your feet, and face them. Solitude is the brutal forge where true mental strength is built. Sit in an empty room for 1 full hour with absolutely zero distractions. Let your deepest anxieties rise to the surface. Look at them objectively, examine them. Realize that they are nothing more than electrical impulses in your brain, and they have no physical power over your reality. What separates a strong man from the masses is his ability to find absolute peace in complete isolation. He is his own greatest company. The trap of over-information. We are currently drowning in a sea of information, yet we are starving for actual wisdom. You do not need another life hack. You do not need to discover another optimized morning routine. You do not need to read 50 books this year to feel productive. What you desperately need is execution. Knowing exactly what to do and not doing it is exactly the same thing as not knowing at all. Men constantly use consuming information as a deceptive substitute for taking action. It feels incredibly productive to watch a psychological video on discipline, but it accomplishes absolutely nothing unless you put the device down and actually do the difficult work. The modern Stoic puts himself on a strict information diet. He consumes only the specific knowledge that he intends to apply immediately to his life. He ruthlessly filters out the noise. He understands that mental clarity comes from stripping things away, not adding more clutter to his brain. Redefining true success. The modern, mainstream definition of success is entirely external. It is measured in sports cars, expensive watches, and shallow status symbols. But true, Stoic success is an entirely internal metric. It is the absolute mastery of the self. A man who owns a massive international company but cannot control his own temper is a fundamental failure. He is a pathetic slave to his own biology. A man who has very little material wealth but possesses unbreakable peace of mind is living like a king. True success is the quiet ability to lay your head on the pillow at night with a perfectly clear conscience, knowing you acted with honor, courage, and discipline throughout the day. Do not let a spiritually sick society dictate your definition of victory. What separates an elite man from the rest is his relentless pursuit of internal sovereignty. He conquers his own mind first and the external world second. The courage to be disliked. If you truly want to be exceptional in this lifetime, you must fully accept that you will be constantly misunderstood. The average person is terrified of stepping out of the invisible line. They desperately want to fit in. They want to be universally liked by everyone they meet. But the heavy price of universal approval is guaranteed mediocrity. When you start setting ironclad boundaries, when you simply stop reacting to useless drama, when you prioritize your life's mission over polite social pleasantries, average people will call you cold. They will call you arrogant. They will complain that you have changed. Let them talk. Their lack of understanding is completely not your problem. You cannot carry the dead weight of their expectations. A strong man does not bend his reality or lower his standards to make weak people feel more comfortable. He stands tall, holds his ground, and lets the chips fall where they may. The ultimate weapon of acceptance, the final, most profound step in the journey of emotional mastery, is absolute, radical acceptance. The ancients called it amor fati, the love of one's fate. This is not just passively accepting what happens to you, but aggressively embracing it. If you face a brutal, unexpected setback, you do not just say, "I suppose I can handle this." You look at the obstacle and say, "I needed this. This is raw fuel. This is the exact pressure I required to reach the next level of my evolution." When you view every single event in your life, both the incredibly good and the devastatingly bad, as something specifically designed to make you stronger, you become truly unstoppable. There is no therapy session on earth that can provide this level of psychological invincibility. It is a complete paradigm shift. This is the ultimate hidden truth that the 1% of men understand. They do not fight reality. They weaponize it. You are now equipped with the architecture of an unbreakable mind. You are no longer a blind participant in the modern cult of emotional fragility. You understand that your reactions, your attention, and your mental energy are the most valuable assets you possess, and you will no longer hand them out to those who have not earned them. The world will continue to be chaotic, unfair, and relentlessly demanding. Let it be. Your mind is your only true domain, and from this day forward, you defend it like a fortress. If you are one of the few who had the discipline to stay until the very end, you are already operating on a higher level. Subscribe to the channel to continue building your intellectual and psychological superiority. Hit the like button to solidify your commitment to the path of the modern Stoic. Now leave your mark. What is the one emotion you will stop letting control you today? Tell me in the comments and then get back to work.